for the last 8 years, I have been promoting, canvassing, knocking on doors, and campaigning for sustainable practices. And the one thing I found out that nobody even knows what I'm talking about. I mean, nobody, no board member, no homeowner, blah, 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 and definitely not a property manager. So I want to share with you the little bit that I know. Our streetscapes city streetscapes is what they go by acceptable behavior when we talk about taking care of our quality environment. And that's why you see some of the other videos. We are failing immensely on our streetscapes. So when I worked in the landscaping industry for IFMA and BOMA, was your facilities, both of these. And they talk about not just your Honeywells, but also your hospitals and your senior centers and your, go on and go on and go on. So what they taught was operations and sustainable practices in these industries. They omitted the landscape. I don't know why. They did streetscapes, they did parking lots, but they omitted landscape, and that's where I came in. I helped create a sustainable practice for their facilities. So each and every one of them, because they're all different, so you have to have one specifically. There is nothing in any of the guidelines that require an HOA to have anything that shows what sustainable practices are. You have your bylaws. This is how you run a nonprofit corporation. You have guidelines, CC&Rs, which are all made up. I mean, the Realtor of Arizona's compile a guideline, they give it to the board, and then the board makes up. What time are we supposed to not be on the streets? I don't know, let's pick this time. And that's a problem because our homeowners do not know any of this. They don't. So what's happening is that our streetscapes need to be changed so that our homeowners know that there is another way to manage our communities. We need to have education for the HOAs. We need to have a platform. And that's why I created Community Resource Advocates. Please go right now. Google has not approved my search engine, so you have to go www.communityresourceadvocates.com and it'll pop right up. And you can go to YouTube, Community Resource Advocates, and you should see me pop up there and find these videos. Anyway, so I've been trying to share with the cities the behavior we have. And now, through the next few videos, I want you to see how the largest corporation we have in the state of Arizona is not required to follow any sustainable programs, and how the homeowners are not aware of it. And what's worse yet, how it gets exploited out. Because if the homeowners knew that they could require it, but they knew what it was, I bet you they would say yes. But because they don't know what it means, they say things like, oh, they're doing the best they can. Those were bad contractors. And I've got a list that goes on and on and on. And by wanting to keep the homeowners uneducated, there's a little other stuff going on that I will share with you in the next few videos. So I hope this kind of starts it. I started this business because I think, my personal opinion, that if you're going to be running a nonprofit corporation for all of these homeowners, that they should be required to follow a best known practice. And they should be regulated on the water use. this point, there is no regulation. Last year, the landscapers were letting the water flow down everywhere. This year, well, we're going to put in a new system. 5 years ago, they dismantled our system because they didn't know how to use it. So the homeowners are just paying the bill with no clue how to manage anything. So please watch the rest of the videos. I hope this will help everybody get a little more enlightened. Again, my name is Rita, and I develop community resource advocates to change this so that the HOA industry will be forced into following best known practices on all of their maintenance items and create a water plan, a water use plan. Once you realize what's going on, the system, then you'll know that you're all involved and we all have to find a solution together. It cannot be one department. Bottom line, we have the problem. The contractors are killing our trees. Our big, beautiful, established trees are getting decimated by our contractors. Now, what they're doing is they're raising it. And they're gutting the inside and they're leaving the little tufts. And this damage has been going everywhere. If you look at my site, you're going to see a couple of videos up right now, and maybe by the time you see this, I'll have a few more, of what damage is happening to your cityscapes and our shopping centers, our business centers, our schools are all mimicking everything that the streetscapes are doing. And nobody's explaining to them that this is damaging their trees, this is killing their trees. It is not protecting, conserving, or preserving. So what I want to do is I want to go through the next few videos. We want to talk about why the contractors are killing our trees, why they're killing even our saplings before they can ever become a tree. We're going to go through the system of education. We're going to go through the decision makers, and then we're going to talk about the possible solutions. So I hope you'll stay with me. Okay, now that we've established that the contractors are killing our trees, we need to find out how to stop them. So let's show education. We have AZ Tree Council, teach all about arborist work. We have ALCA that talks about landscaping. We have like Rainbird Horizon and Horizon that talks about irrigation to our contractors. We have, let's see, we have Arizona Research Center. And that's something that the homeowners can go to and talk to them, and master gardeners and things like that. Not very many people are even aware of it. And then we have, of course, property managers. And they're supposed to be trained on nonprofits because HOA is in a nonprofit. Now, I really am going to focus on HOAs. HOAs. And that's because when you finally see how this is working, that the HOAs is where we really have to focus. If you noticed here, Arizona Tree Council, contractors, ALCA is landscapes contractors, the Rainbird and Horizon are contractors, the Arizona Research Center, mainly contractors. They do want to talk to board members about what sustainable is, but that's just like discussing it, you know, having a conversation. Property managers are trained in nonprofit. We have IFMA. They train operations. It's at International Facility Management Association. We've got BOMA. They have in operations. Then books to go by, like, March 25, they would have to change out this motor, or they are going to have to fix it, or every month on the 3rd that they have to change the filters. They get a guide, a book. Both BOMA and IFMA, all the facility managers do, and that includes hospitals and nursing homes and all of these facilities. So the question is, out of all of these places, who teaches the homeowners? Who gives them the guide? Where do the homeowners go to get this information? They have to search for it. I know we can go Arizona Municipal Waters Association. They talk about wanting to talk to board members, not homeowners, board members. So we've got all claims of all these people and all this education. Nobody's teaching homeowners, and nobody's requiring that education is done for the HOAs when it comes to best known practices, or when it comes to sustainable practices. In fact, what I have found, that if I talk to any of the homeowners or even board members, they have no idea what I'm talking about. If I talk about, do you know that is not considered a best known practice? Well, what does that mean? Or that is not a sustainable practice. What does that mean? And the board members are actually supposed to be protecting, preserving, enhancing, constructing your community to make it nicer. But they don't know what that means. There's nobody telling them. And it is not any of these people's job to teach the homeowners, including the property management company. They are not in charge. They're not in charge to educate anybody. They're not in charge to dictate to anybody how things should be done. They are strictly non-profit educated. And so what they can do is they'll compile the books, and they'll give you what you would call a spending budget. HOAs get nothing but a spending budget. That's it. So property managers go and say, we'll help you spend. You want me to bring in some contractors? We'll bring in some contractors. But there's nothing discussed on creating a sustainable plan by anybody. And that's where we have to start with our education. We've got to take away the belief that a property manager is going to do right for an HOA, because they're not. It's not their job. We got to take away the belief that the contractors that are going to ALCA are going to train the HOAs, because they're not going to do it. Neither are the tree councils. You saw what we've got out there. And so the question is, how do we fix this? What is it? Because if you talk to ALCA, Barb and Judy over there, they say, we train all these contractors and we give them the book. And I says, well, yeah, I gave the board member a book. They gave it to the property manager who's not in charge. And that's the last everybody saw of it. So the big step right now is to understand there is no education to the homeowners. None. Information's available, but none of it gets to them. So we'll start with that. We'll see how the next trip we're going to talk about how the system works and how all of this is working against the system. Okay, we are now at the point of understanding the system. We have to know the current situation before we can make any changes. We cannot make changes if we don't know how this whole system works. So, property managers, well, to do that, they are educated in nonprofit, not in sustainable practices. They are not trained in any maintenance management policies, period, when it comes to the actual work. So they are property managers or educated in nonprofit. How to keep your books. The contractors, the decision makers, let's just go right into decision makers. The decision makers have no place to go. It's available online. How would they know? Because the property manager's job is not to educate the decision makers. It's just not. They'll help guide. So I want you to really think about this. Our property managers who are not educated in any aspect of maintenance needs and items, only an estimated guess, money to spend, provide a spending budget. That's all they can do and help manage that spending budget. The decision makers can only go by what the property manager is suggesting because they have no place else to go. So when the decision makers go, well, I've never ran a community before, and there's no guide how to run a community. So the property manager says, why don't we give you a spending budget? We estimate with this many houses, and these are the things that you're going to take care of. You're going to have to make, let's say, $2 million at the end of 20 years. How do you want it spent? And that is our problem. How do we want it spent? They don't know, and there's no place for them to go. They don't know. It's not their job to teach. It's not their job. The contractors only come in and do, the property manager brings them in, tells the decision makers, pick one, but they don't know what they're buying. So the contractors write out their own contracts. The contractors write out their own contracts. So the decision makers are going by the suggested property managers, the guides, the contractors they bring in. The contractors know that the decision makers do not know what's going on. So they write out a very, let's say, non-detailed contract. And then the property management team puts their big logo on it, and we pay, the decision makers pay the bill. But they don't know what they're buying because the contract is very vague on all of them. So here's a big question, and especially in our community, they voted. I was a board member, not allowed to talk to the contractors. I was voted not allowed to create a sustainable program for any of the maintenance items. That was because the property manager said, you don't need that, to the other decision makers. We are the professionals. She is not. We know what we're doing. Trust us. So think about this one. We have a contractor bringing in their own contractors, writing out all of the contracts and RFPs, requests for proposals, because our decision makers do not know what any of this is all about. They can only guess. So if the trees are all chopped up and they see it out on the streets, they must be doing the right thing. But if we, like a homeowner, says to the decision makers, holy cow, you're not running a sustainable program, they have no idea what that means. The decision makers do not know what sustainable practices mean. They don't know what following best known practices mean. They do not know that there is all this research that is designed to help homeowners create a sustainable program. It never gets to them. The contractor's job is not to educate them. The property manager's job is not to educate them. So think about this. If I'm a property manager and I'm bringing in all the contracts and I'm writing out all the contracts and all the RFPs, and the decision maker's like, sounds good, it's a free-for-all. I want you to think about this as a whole. HOA'S is the largest corporations you have in the state of Arizona and actually in the nation. HOA'S are the largest corporations spread out utilizing the majority of our economic qualities in life and in experience, and yet the decision makers have nothing to go by except what a contractor suggests and writes. And that's why there's always so many disputes. It's a free-for-all. I call it an exploitation of our funds. Because if you are making decisions for a corporation, why aren't you bound to follow what would be considered a best known practice? Because there's no regulation saying it. There's nobody saying you have to educate the board members, any place. So what happens with me as a homeowner, if I want to sit there and say they're wrong, do this is a more sustainable way, the property manager tells the decision makers, don't listen to her. She's not the professional we are. This is how things are always done. And if you go nationwide, it is exactly how things are done. They, who are totally uneducated, have nothing to give. There's nothing given to them to run a corporation, a nonprofit corporation. So they depend on our contractors to do the right thing for them. And see how that's working. Because it's a free-for-all. There's no regulation. Okay, so we know we have the problem. We know where there's a vast majority of our issues. These are my suggested solutions. First of all, create a platform strictly for HOAs. And that's what I did. Community Resource Advocates is a platform for the HOAs to go and start seeing things different than what their property managers are bringing to the table. Another thing, you got to remove the term maintenance and turn it into preservation. Because preservation is what you're actually supposed to be doing, not just turning it in a circle and see what do you want to do now. We're supposed to be preserving our assets. So we have to change the term from maintenance into preservation. What is the best possible practice? So we need a platform strictly for the HOAs. We need to turn the term maintenance into preservation so they understand what best possible practices are. All board members should go to a class to understand the dynamics of everything and remove the stigma that the property manager knows everything and will do everything for them. They have to understand they're responsible because they don't. Right now, all these homeowners that live in this community believe the property manager knows everything. And look how that's been working out for us. So we have to remove the stigma that the property manager is in charge and put it back on the board members. So when the people say, what can we do? They're going to know that they can do something. There is a place. We also need on this platform ethical complaints. There's no place a homeowner can go. Right now, it'll cost me, if I wanted to sue the board for all the damage and the retaliation that they've done just to me and the fair way they handle, it would cost me $10,000 just for a retainer. Then it's going to cost me all this money, time, and effort to be told they have every right to do whatever they want. And that's where there should be some place where a homeowner can go and have a platform for ethics, because they should not be able to treat a homeowner the way they've treated me here in this one, just because they don't know anything different. So if we have a platform for the HOAs, strictly for them to go, we change the term maintenance into preservation so they understand that's what this is, and they receive all their contractors from there. So we have links to the sustainable contracting education that you have. So you have the links to all of the educational tools and that way they're not destined to just deal with what the property manager is going to suggest for them. Now they're in charge again. And that's how this needs to go. The minute you do this, you'll see a dramatic change in the way the contractors act, because they will have to be held accountable. We need to teach them how to write their own contracts and help them with the details. Teach them what an RFP is and explain how that goes in details. And if you want ideas, that's what I'm here for. So we need a platform strictly for the HOAs. We need to change the name from maintenance into preservation so that they know we're doing the best possible. We should have links to all the educational tools, and the board members need to take a class. Because if the board members take a class and they know all this stuff, the property manager can't misguide them, because like I said, they're not responsible anyway. And the contractors will be coming off of the sustainable. And the best part of this whole thing is why I'm focusing on HOAs. Because the people that live in HOAs are also your school managers and your shopping center managers and your facility managers and your BOMA managers and your hospital managers. And that is how you start educating the masses. You require that you create the platform. And again, I would love to talk to somebody about utilizing mine. We changed the terms. We have the links to all of your educational tools. The board members need to go to a class to understand their responsibility. And then we give them the tools to create their own contracts and their RFPs. And this has to be free to the board members. It has to be state funded, and it has to be a state mandated thing, not just a city. So I'm asking for help, and I'm asking either for to get together and we can discuss options, and know that I need help in this because I can't do it alone. So hope to meet all of you soon.